Legend of Total War here, and today we've got a rating your Doomstack video covering a Skullcracker Doomstack. Now, Skullcrackers are tier 2 war machine units, so the Chaos Dwarves can actually start recruiting these very early on. So this is a Doomstack that you could potentially start building very early on in your campaign, but something to keep in mind is that it uses up the unit capacities of war machines. Now, you're definitely going to want to build loads of war machines, so something to consider is that you could make a spam of these units to take out your anti-infantry opponents, and then replace these guys later down the track with the more desirable artillery pieces that the Chaos Dwarves have. So we've also got Zatan the Black commanding, who is the only character that's able to provide them any significant buffs over just generic lords. He's providing them with an additional 15 armor and 5 melee defense. He does also provide a leadership buff, but that doesn't matter here because these are unbreakable, so that's irrelevant. I don't think that this is the best army for Zatan the Black, but Zatan the Black is the best commander for this Doomstack, if that makes sense. Going up against Reichland, they've got 2 full stacks here. Most of it's infantry, which is playing into our strengths, but there are some single entities here that are extremely dangerous. Boris Todbringer and Emperor Karl Franz being the 2 notable examples. You've also got steam tanks and the Tempelhof Luminarch there. All the infantry I really don't think is going to be that much of a concern. Auto-resolve gives a Pyrrhic victory, so it seems to be reasonably okay in auto-resolve. We've definitely seen better. But I don't like to rate these Doomstacks based on whether or not they can just auto-resolve everything. I don't think that's a very fun way to use the game, but it's entirely up to you. Anyway, let's jump in here and see how it performs. Now, we've had Doomstacks sent in against 4 full stacks, and I don't expect everybody to send their Doomstacks up against 4 full stacks, especially when you're just using a tier 2 unit. But when we've got a situation where even the auto-resolve is like, yeah, you got this, we kind of need to handicap ourselves a little bit in order to properly test it, because this isn't a disaster battle. This is a foregone conclusion. We should win this. But what we want to do is see what these units are actually capable of. Can they actually handle fighting Karl Franz? So Zatan the Black would normally be used to take out single entity lords such as Karl Franz, but because the odds are quite favorable for us, I'm going to keep him out of it. We're just going to use the Skullcrackers and see what they can do on their own. Now, of course, in battles where we're going up against significantly greater odds, I tend to use more of our abilities just to support the Doomstack that's sent in. But I think we'll get a feel for how good these units are going up against 2 full stacks. Because in your campaign, at the end of the day, you're building these, we're testing these armies to see if it's worth building in your campaigns. You're not going to be going up against, in every single one of your engagements, 4 full stacks of endgame crisis stuff. Most people just don't play that way. This is, even on legendary difficulty, the extent to which Reichland would probably ever send some forces at you. It's very rare for them to send 4 full stacks. You know, in Warhammer 2, they would routinely do that, but the AI just doesn't produce as many armies in Warhammer 3 as it did in 2. Alright, so I wanted to wait for their reinforcements to show up, give them a little bit of a... just don't make use of their disadvantage, more like it. And let's just hang back a little bit. Just noting something here. The AI is actually completely unaware of terrain obstructions. So if we have a look over here, they won't try to put units on terrain obstructions because they can't, but if you see what they're trying to do here, they're just trying to spread out into one long formation. As far as they're concerned, this terrain over here is connected to this terrain over here. That's why these units are setting up over here. Now, a player would obviously not designate any units over here while keeping the bulk over this way, but the AI is completely unaware of this obstruction. Alright, let's go in there. First thing we probably want to focus on is taking out Boris Todbringer and Karl Franz, but also pinning down the Hammer of the Witches and any other very dangerous single entities. So zigzag formation, don't be a Rickon. That's it. Dodge him on the approach. Okay, definitely want to fight Karl Franz, but let's do that near the artillery. That's it. Go move, move, move. Pretty quick. Not able to move yet. You got Luminarch. Okay, there we go. Okay, cool. That's it. Try to get them all together. They definitely fight better. All together? What are you doing? Get over here. Luckily these guys have enough mass that they can even push through cavalry, which a lot of single entities can't do. Okay, we took out the artillery, that's good. Now Karl Franz is eating our ass over here, we need to take him out. The infantry really shouldn't matter all that much. Should be fine handling them. Okay, if we dogpile on Karl Franz, it looks like they actually handled him quite well. Okay, got all units. What are units shooting us here? The Hellforge unit upgrades, which I forgot to go over. They're, I'll go over them at the end of the battle. Okay, cool. It looks like we're all together there. That's it. Duel their single entities. Alright, the Hellstorm rocket batteries are probably going to do a lot of damage to their own troops. So that's not good for them, but AI is stupid. What are you going to do? Good, we got all the really dangerous units pinned down here. Karl Franz has done, quickly before, he's dying real quick, has done 5,000 damage. That's a fair bit, but that's not enough to kill even a single one of them. Boris Todbringer has not done anywhere near as much. Obviously, Karl Franz is going to be a lot stronger than Toddy. And Franz is down. Cool. Alright, let's start bringing these guys in so we can use them to heal. That's the whole point of them in the army. He did also mention that he got the Hashut ones for Ash Storm, but these guys don't actually do flaming attacks unless you've got a Banner of the Eternal Flame, which he doesn't have, so that doesn't make any sense. There's no point increasing their flame, or decreasing their flame resistance. We're just not doing flaming attacks. Oh god, that's loud. Stay away from that. So I'm not totally opposed to having 3 wizards in the army. It's totally dependent on how you want to go about it. But if you want to just run 1 wizard in the army, I think that's fine as well. Because the amount of healing that it provides is not huge. It's just meant to be a little bit extra. So our units have 40% physical resistance because they've got the Hellbound ability. That's one of the Hellforge unit upgrades. So only magical attacks are of any real concern. They don't have any missile resistance. Good amount of armor. This army does lack a fair bit of armor piercing. The steam tank managed to get a whole 28 damage in, so that didn't do very well for them. One of the Hellforge unit upgrades is also the barrier, plus 1,000 hit points. That's very useful. So these heals here, they're better than nothing, and it's good for if you have to fight multiple battles in a single turn. But on any one given battle, they don't provide a ton of value. And obviously the Infernal Castellans is there for the campaign movement range. Infantry is just no problem for these guys, especially in a huge blob. They just turn them all into mincemeat. Yeah, they're racking up kills real quick there. So this is why blobbing them up is really useful. It's not so much against the single entities, it's against the infantry. Because they're constantly disrupted. They just can't get hits in. The only thing that was ever any threat to us was the single entities. And they actually managed to handle that. Now these guys are here, the AI is targeting them. It is on very hard battle difficulty, but because these are on a big amount, the AI will try to target them over the war machines. If these guys were on foot, the AI wouldn't bother targeting them. So looking at these guys, that actually did some damage. But it looks like we're walking out of this battle pretty much unscathed. And I think given what we were going up against here, they probably could have handled another full stack without getting destroyed. And we probably could have handled 4 full stacks of Empire if we utilize the army, you know, and not hamstring ourselves by not utilizing magic. Like if I pop down a few flame storms, that'll clear out a full stack easily, especially when there's like loads of them in a choke point here. So this is an army that we could have handled 4 full stacks of Reichland. You know, just duplicate Karl Franz's army, could have handled 4. And pop that down there. Alright, looking at the kills on them. 8,000 damage, 9,000 damage. Yeah. This one here got 152 kills. That one did a lot. What was that doing? It was just among them. Maybe this one here wasn't so focused on the single entities and was just constantly fighting infantry, which would have been easier for them. I don't think it was possible for us to get a decisive victory on this battle. Because we really didn't take that much damage. And it is sometimes the case where, right on the edge of almost being outpowered enough to be a heroic victory, but not enough to be a difficult fight. If it's a decisive victory, it ends up in this weird close victory state. Because, yeah, that's not very much damage. Now, just because as well that it took out these Empire forces fairly easily, doesn't mean that it'll do anywhere near as well against certain other factions. I think that this army is quite well geared to taking out the Empire. Here are some factions that I think that this will do really well against. That was a bad choice, but it doesn't matter. Don't need to send stuff back. The Empire just lacks a lot of single entities. The AI is mostly going to build armies full of infantry and cavalry, I suppose, and artillery, and this is pretty good against that, because you close in on the artillery pretty quickly. Even if there's steam tanks, you just close in quickly on them, get them into melee. Our guys can beat their steam tanks in melee. Guns, mass amounts of guns could be an issue. We didn't go up against that, but I think if you just micro well, you can basically just keep them constantly in skirmish mode. And yeah, the AI, at Reichland at least, not having that many single entities really wouldn't be able to deal with this. It'd be good against the dwarfs, it'd be good against early game Skaven, but if the later game Skaven start bringing more of their monster units, things like Brood Horrors and Hellpit Abominations, I think then you'd really struggle. I don't think it'd be a good army to bring against Norska or the Warriors of Chaos in the later stages of the campaign. Early game Norska should be fine, but later stage, if they're bringing in Mammoths, I think you should be concerned. Should be okay against Cathay. Ogres would be a bit of a concern due to most of their units being large. I would not be bringing it against them. I'd be careful about using it against Vampire Counts. I think the Vampire Counts have got a fair few counters for that. Also, let's have a look at the unit, the Hellforge upgrades. We've got Passability Hellbound, so that provides magical attacks, physical resistance plus 20%, and perfect vigor, while the hit points are above 25%. That's pretty easy to sustain. You got Blazing Body, that gives them more physical resistance and melee damage reflection, while their time spent in melee. So eventually they end up with up to 50% physical resistance. Also, another thing to note is that he didn't have the Oath of Contempt. If we had the Oath of Contempt, we could have gotten an additional 50%, additional 10% physical resistance, and also, let me just see if he actually had it. No, he doesn't have it. He doesn't have that other one as well that provides melee defense in an area. Yeah, he just doesn't have them yet. Fair enough. Okay, and then there's the barrier hit points plus 1,000, which is really good because 3,000 hit points that can regenerate an infinite number of times, and that's really helpful for single entities there. So, things to consider now about rating this Doomstack. It's not a case with Chaos Dwarves that a Doomstack is either super strong or super weak. Most of their units are just really strong, and what balances that out is unit capacities. And we have to take that into consideration when building any Doomstack. Now, war machines, with the exception of Hell Cannons, all use the same capacity. Now, the Skullcracker, the Magma Cannon, and I think Iron Demon, I'll just confirm that, they're all rank tier 2 units. So if we have a look here, this is where they recruit from. So we've got Skullcracker, Magma Cannon, and Iron Demon, all at tier 2. So you can get these very early on for an initial cost of 250. Of course, you're only going to have one base capacity at the beginning of the campaign, and then having to spend more armaments, which is not super easy to get in the earlier stages, but it is possible to do it if you want to dedicate to it. So it's not unheard of for you to be able to get 15 Skullcrackers into an army by, say, turn 40. I think that would be, if you're rushing for it, you could do that. And that would make it very good at dealing with Thorgrim Grudgebearer, that's for sure. And also Ungrim Iron Fist. So that could be a viable thing to do with it. But another thing to consider is that if you're dedicating an entire army to Skullcrackers, you're increasing the cost constantly of the unit capacities here, and you're not putting in Dreadquake mortars into your other armies. Now, as you get later on in the campaign, you'll obviously get more and more armaments, and this becomes a trivial argument. But in the earlier stages of the campaign, the only part of the campaign that actually matters, because nobody should be struggling in a late game Chaos Dwarf campaign, they're simply too strong, right? Is it really a good idea to have a full stack of Skullcrackers when they get basically surpassed by these ones here? I don't think so. But in the early stages of the campaign, I think that could be quite efficient, especially at dealing with dwarfs. So if they're giving you a bit of a hard time, maybe there's something for you to consider. But I would be pulling away this unit capacity, pulling away the Skullcrackers from these armies by about turn 50 and start getting some of the better units, like Magma Cannons are very good, and Dreadquake mortars especially. Once you hit tier 5, you really want to be getting Dreadquake mortars among your infantry-based armies. Of course, I don't want to tell you exactly how to build your armies. That's entirely up to you. You can build them however you want. You want to spam single entities? Totally fine. You want to spam just one unit in all your armies? Not a problem. If you want to put one of every unit in all of your armies, then that's fine as well. But yeah, in terms of overall cost effectiveness, early game good, late game bad. It's easy to use, and it is pretty strong, but I think it would seriously struggle against half the races in this game. Things like Lizardmen, Nurgle, anything that's got a lot of single entities, I think that, a lot of large units, I think would give this a bit of a hard time. So you just need to tailor this Doomstack to the enemies that you're facing. So going into the Empire here, you should be fairly good, as long as you don't go fight Wood Elves. If they bring a whole bunch of tree men, you're screwed. Okay, so overall, I think it exceeded my expectations, which is good, because I kind of wrote this unit off. But I would not be building this army in a later stage Chaos Dwarf campaign. It's definitely very good for a tier 2 unit, for sure. Definitely exceeded my expectations there. But we also got to consider that this is pretty much maxed out, and you absolutely do not need to use a Tan the Black for this army if you wanted to build it. Anyway, that's the end of this one here, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think of the Skullcracker Doomstack, which they kind of resemble like mincemeat machines. But yeah, I was impressed with it, but not necessarily a Doomstack that I personally would want to build. I didn't find it interesting enough, and the Chaos Dwarves have got so many Doomstacks. It's entirely up to your personal taste as to what you want to build. Anyway, it's the end of this one. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for sending this in, and we'll see you next time. Later, guys.